convince him to sell. Falling in love with him was not part of the plan. Before we begin, tell us in the comments what city are you watching from. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The elevator doors slid open on the 15th floor of the Logan Luxury Group headquarters, and the quiet hum of corporate Lagos washed over Lynad Anderson like a familiar storm. People greeted her with tight smiles, small nods, and the kind of respect given to someone who carried the weight of 3 departments on her shoulders. At 35, she had become the woman everyone depended on, and the woman no one fully saw. Her office looked out over Victoria Island, where luxury high-rises stood like polished trophies against the glittering lagoon. From her window, she could see yachts drifting lazily near the Civic Center, the elegant curve of Ozumba Mbadiwe Road, and the blur of wealth that never slept. It was a beautiful view, but it never felt like hers. She dropped her bag on the desk and frowned at her buzzing phone. A message from Pearl's school group chat. Parent-teacher. Brunch, thank you to all present parents. And beneath it, another from her 14-year-old daughter. Mom, it's okay. Daniel stayed on video with me. I'm fine, promise. Guilt pushed its way into her chest like a weight she'd learned to carry since Pearl was a baby. It wasn't that she didn't love her daughter. She loved Pearl fiercely, but motherhood had become something she squeezed in between emergencies at work. And work never stopped calling. Another message flashed in. Daniel. She pretended not to care. You okay? Of all the things that had gone right in her life, staying friends with her ex was the one she cherished. He was engaged now, expecting a baby, building a new life with a woman who adored him. And instead of jealousy, Lynad felt peace. Daniel deserved a happiness she couldn't give him, and he had given Pearl stability when her world felt like shifting sand. A knock landed on her office door. Come in, she called. The door swung open, revealing Mrs. Sincere Sharp Bob, flawless makeup, a navy suit worth someone's rent, and the expression of a woman who had never once settled for second place. Her heels announced her entrance long before her voice did. Miss Anderson, she said briskly. My office, now. Lynad sighed silently and followed her to the large glass-encased corner office, the kind of office she worked toward for 10 years and still wasn't considered for. Sit, Mrs. Sincere commanded. Lynad obeyed. We've identified a new expansion target, her boss began, sliding a folder toward her. Logan wants to acquire a piece of land in the Maldives, an orange orchard with old-style cottages, perfect for redevelopment. The first photo in the folder showed rows of vibrant orange trees, sunlight shimmering over the fruit like gold. The second photo showed a rustic but charming lodge beside a sparkling turquoise sea. Beautiful, Lynad murmured. Beautiful, yes, Mrs. Sincere replied. Profitable? Even more. Unfortunately, the owner refuses to sell. Sentimental attachment. Widow nonsense. Widow nonsense. The words grated against Lynad's skin. We've sent 10 offers over the years, Mrs. Sincere continued. He declined all of them. It's time to escalate. A cold prickle ran down Lynad's spine. Ma'am, what exactly are you asking me to do? I'm sending you there, her boss said simply. In person. With your experience and charm, you'll get him to sign what emails and calls couldn't. Lynad blinked. I can't go anywhere right now. I promised Pearl a proper vacation. Just us. No work. Then take her, her boss snapped. The orchard has rooms. Consider it a working holiday. Maldives is hardly a sacrifice. It's not the location, Lynad said tiredly. It's the principle. She wants me, not a mother running through orchards with contracts. Mrs. Sincere's eyes hardened. Are you declining an assignment? The room fell still. Declining meant losing her job, and losing her job meant losing Pearl's school, her apartment, her stability, everything she fought for since she was a teenager, selling snacks in Lagos traffic to survive. No, she whispered. I'm not declining. Good. Mrs. Sincere stood. You fly out in 2 days. And Miss Anderson? She paused at the door. Don't fall for the man's sob stories. We want the land, not his emotions. Back in her office, the world that once felt predictable suddenly felt like it was tilting. She stared at the folder, at the pictures of the orchard glowing under soft sunlight, and wondered what kind of man held onto land so stubbornly. Was he lonely? Angry? Lost? Or just a man fighting for something that still reminded him of love? Her phone vibrated again. Pearl. Mom, are we still going on vacation? Or is work winning this time? A tear slipped quietly down her cheek. Lynad, we're going, baby. Maldives, just you and me. Pearl responded instantly. Yay! I love you, Mom. The words hurt more than they healed. 2 days later, mother and daughter stood in the boarding gate area at Murtala Mohammed International Airport. Pearl's eyes sparkled with a joy that almost made the heaviness inside Lynad disappear. You look nervous, Pearl said. I'm not nervous, Lynad lied. You're tapping your fingers. That's your nervous sign. She forced her hand still. Fine, I'm a little nervous. Pearl grinned. It's okay. We're going to paradise, remember? But paradise could turn into war the moment she stepped on the orchard. As the boarding announcement echoed, Pearl nudged her. Mom, look. She pointed at a tall, broad-shouldered man reading a book quietly in the corner. He looks like someone in those serious lawyer movies. The man lifted his eyes briefly. Their gazes met. A strange, soft jolt went through her. Then she looked away. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. She didn't know he would become the reason her life would never be the same. She only knew that the Maldives trip she feared was just beginning. The heat in Maldives wrapped around Lynad like a warm embrace the moment she and Pearl stepped off the plane. Not the harsh Lagos heat that pressed on your lungs, but something softer, saltier, sweeter, carrying the scent of citrus and ocean. Pearl practically glued her face to the taxi window, gasping at every stretch of turquoise water. Mom, she whispered, awe dripping from her voice. The water is actually blue, like paint. It's stunning, Lynad admitted, though her stomach twisted with nerves. She wasn't here to relax. She was here to negotiate with a man who hated everything the Logan Group stood for. Their taxi rolled past small shops painted in bright colors, barefoot children chasing each other, and fishermen sorting their nets on the sand. Then the buildings thinned, replaced by endless rows of orange trees swaying gently in the breeze. A wooden sign appeared ahead, hand-painted and worn by the sun. Rachel's Orchard Lodge. Pearl leaned forward. This is it? Mom, it's so pretty. It really is, Lynad murmured. The taxi pulled into a clearing surrounded by lush greenery. Several rustic lodges stood in a semicircle, each with thatched roofs and wide verandas. A woman in a floral dress rushed forward. You must be Miss Anderson, she said with a warm smile. I'm Lila. I help run the orchard. Welcome. Thank you, Lynad replied, adjusting her bag. And this must be your daughter, Lila beamed. I'm Pearl, she said, already enchanted. Do people really live here? It's like a movie. Lila laughed. Some of us do. Come, your lodge is ready. While their bags were taken in, Pearl wandered toward a tree heavy with ripe oranges. Pearl, Lynad warned gently. I'm just looking. Lila leaned closer. Mr. Johnston is somewhere in the orchard, but a little warning? Here it comes, Lynad thought. He's not fond of Logan Group, Lila whispered. Be patient. Wasn't planning on kicking down his trees, Lynad said, forcing a polite smile. She straightened her blouse and followed the path through the orchard. The air grew cooler under the canopy of leaves, the sunlight filtering through in golden patches. She could hear distant waves crashing softly against the shore. Ahead, she saw a man bent over a tree, studying its leaves. Strong build, dark skin glistening under the sun. A linen shirt rolled up to his elbows. Excuse me, she said, approaching carefully. I'm looking for the owner of the orchard. He straightened, turned, and her breath stopped. The man from the airport. The quiet one with the book. The one Pearl said looked like a lawyer in a movie. He blinked once, recognition flickering in his eyes. But there was no warmth, only calm suspicion. You're from Logan, he said flatly. The accusation hit harder than she expected. I'm Lynad, she replied. Lynad Anderson. Yes, I work for the Logan Luxury Group, but you're here to convince me to sell, he interrupted, dusting his hands. No greeting, no handshake, no politeness. I'm here to understand your perspective, she said evenly, not force anything. He didn't smile. My name is Caeser Johnston. The name rolled through her chest like something important. I know your company, he continued. I know how they operate. They think money fixes everything. It doesn't. I don't think that, she said. I only want a conversation. And I only want one thing, he said sharply, to keep this land. He stepped aside, gesturing to the orchard. This, he said softly, was my wife's dream. Rachel. She died 2 years ago. We built this place with our hands, our savings, our foolish belief that the world still had space for small things. His tone wasn't angry now. It was something worse, deeply wounded. I'm sorry, Lynad said quietly. She named it after herself, he continued, eyes drifting across the trees. We wanted to build something that would feed families, not take from them. That's beautiful, she whispered. He shrugged. Logan Group doesn't care about beautiful. They care about beaches and profit margins. Before she could reply, laughter rang out behind them. Mira! Pearl's voice echoed. They turned as the two girls burst between the trees, breathless and giggling. Mom, this is Mira, Pearl said, wiping sweat from her forehead. She gave me a tour. She knows everything. Mira grinned shyly. Pearl is fun. She doesn't act like a visitor. Caesar's voice softened. Mira is my niece, Rachel's sister's daughter. She stays here most days. Pearl beamed. Mom, can I play with her? Please? Lynad sighed but smiled. Stay close, and no climbing anything alive. Yes, ma'am. The girls took off again. Caesar watched them for a moment, his expression unreadable. Your daughter seems happy here. She is, Lynad said. She's had a tough year. This is the first time she's laughed this hard in a while. Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. He turned back to her. Look, you and your daughter can stay. The booking is already paid. But don't mistake my hospitality for negotiation. I won't sell. I didn't expect you to, she lied politely. He saw right through it. You're persistent. I'll give you that, he muttered. Dinner is at 7. If you want to see how this place works, eat with the staff. They're the real orchard. He walked away, leaving her standing in the dappled sunlight, her heart pounding for reasons she didn't fully understand. Pearl ran up breathless. Mom, I love this place. Can we live here? Lynad smiled softly. We just got here. But as she watched Caesar disappear into the orange trees, a strange thought whispered through her mind. What if staying wasn't the problem? What if leaving would be? The days in Rachel's orchard slipped into a rhythm so gentle that even Lynad, who lived on alarms and deadlines, felt her shoulders slowly loosening. It had been years since she'd woken to anything other than email pings and Lagos traffic noise. Here, mornings began with birdsong, the whisper of waves, and Pearl's laughter drifting through the orchard. Pearl and Mira had become inseparable, darting through the rows of orange trees like two streaks of sunlight. They climbed low branches, picked ripe oranges, helped workers carry baskets, and told stories about school, crushes, and Lagos life. Watching Pearl bloom in this space made something in Lynad's chest ache, a mix of joy and regret. On the 4th morning, as she sipped tea on her veranda, Caesar appeared in the distance, carrying a basket of tools. Even from afar, he moved with a calm, firm confidence, the kind born from building something with your hands. He inspected the orchard quietly, speaking to workers with familiarity and respect. He was nothing like the executives she dealt with in Lagos. He felt real, solid, complicated, and deeply wounded. Mom, Pearl whispered, leaning on the railing beside her. I think Mr. Caesar is nice. Mira says he used to be a lawyer, but he quit everything when his wife died. I know, Lynad said quietly. You like him, Pearl added, wobbling her eyebrows. Excuse you? Lynad coughed. Pearl shrugged innocently. Adults always think they're hiding things. You smile differently when he talks. I do not, she muttered, but her daughter's laughter said otherwise. Later that afternoon, Lynad found Caesar repairing a wooden fence near the back of the orchard. His shirt clung to him, damp from the heat. His hands were calloused but gentle as he hammered a loose plank. You work more like a farmer than a lawyer, she teased. He didn't look up. I work like a man who doesn't have corporate budgets behind him. Touché. When he finally looked at her, his eyes held that watchful calm. She was beginning to recognize the look of a man who measured people before letting them close. What brings you out here? He asked. I wanted to understand more, she said honestly. Not the part my company wrote in a file, the part only you can explain. He leaned against the post, crossing his arms. Ask, why keep it all running alone? You could take the buyout, live freely, invest elsewhere. You think freedom comes from money? He asked, raising a brow. Doesn't it? She returned calmly. Silence hung between them. Then he exhaled. Rachel chose this place. Every tree here, she planted with her own hands. When she died, people said I should sell, start fresh, move on. His jaw tightened. But how do you move on from someone who built your entire world? A soft ache spread in her chest. I'm sorry, she said once more, and meant it even more deeply this time. He studied her. You talk like someone who's lost before. I have, she admitted. Not death, but life. My childhood. Stability. Parts of myself. I've been fighting ever since. He nodded as if that explained something he'd been sensing. After a moment, he jerked his head toward a rocky path leading upward. Come, I want to show you something. Show me what? You'll see. She followed him up a narrow trail through trees and wild grass. The climb wasn't long, but the air shifted as they reached a small cliff overlooking the entire orchard. And then she saw it. Lanterns hung from trees, glowing softly. The evening sun dipped into the sea, painting the sky with streaks of rose gold. Workers moved below like shadows in a warm painting, laughter floating up. It was breathtaking. Wow, she whispered. It's magical. This, he said quietly, is what they won't see in conference rooms. They'll see potential hotels. But this orchard feeds families, pays school fees. It's the only inheritance some of these workers have. She turned to him. I don't want to take this from anyone, Caesar. Your company does, he said plainly. She bit her lip. I know. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time she saw softness instead of suspicion. Mira told me Pearl is happy here, he said, laughing, running, being a child. She hasn't been this free in a long time, Lynad murmured. It feels like I brought her somewhere safe. You did, he said. The sincerity in his voice did something strange to her heartbeat. When they finally climbed down, the girls were waiting near the lodge, sipping cups of freshly squeezed orange juice. Uncle Caesar, Mira yelled. We were looking for you. Pearl grinned. Mom, Mira says oranges taste better at night. Can we pick some later? We'll see, Lynad smiled. As they walked back, Caesar spoke quietly beside her. You said earlier that you've been fighting all your life. What for? She hesitated. For control, for choice, for the chance to build a life my mother and I never had. And for Pearl, always for Pearl. He nodded, understanding her more deeply than he should. That night, staff and guests gathered for dinner in the main lodge, a long table filled with roasted fish, citrus rice, grilled vegetables, and laughter that made the wooden walls hum. Pearl and Mira sat across from each other, giggling about some inside joke. Workers chatted around them like one big extended family. And Caesar, he sat at the far end, listening quietly, occasionally laughing but mostly observing. His eyes drifted toward Lynad more than once, and each time she felt it. After dinner, she walked back to their lodge, Pearl chattering beside her. Mom, her daughter said softly, you look lighter. That obvious? She chuckled. Mm-hmm. Pearl bumped her shoulder. I like it here, Mom. I like seeing you breathe. The words struck hard. Pajamas. Mused about Mira, then fell asleep quickly, worn out from laughter and sunshine. But sleep wouldn't come for Lynad. She stood by the window looking out at the moonlit orchard. Caesar was there, a lone silhouette near the tallest tree, staring at the sky as though speaking to someone who wasn't there anymore. His stillness tugged at her, his grief, his strength, his complexity. She shouldn't care. She shouldn't feel anything beyond empathy. But she did. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't rushing. She wasn't translating someone else's emotions. She wasn't holding her breath. She was just present. And Caeser Johnston, the widower who guarded his heart as fiercely as his orchard, was becoming the one person who made her forget that she came here on assignment. Tonight, she realized something she didn't expect. She wasn't just falling for the orchard. She was falling for the man who kept it alive. The night trouble started. The air over Rachel's orchard felt unusually warm, buzzing with music from the small boardwalk cafe down the road. It was the kind of night that made people forget rules, responsibilities, and caution. Even Lynad had felt lighter that evening, until the girls came stumbling home. She heard the giggles first, sloppy, loud, a bit unhinged. Then the door flew open. "Mom!" Pearl sang, leaning heavily against the wall. Mira clung to her like a vine, both of them with flushed faces and glassy eyes. "Oh, Lord," Lynad muttered. "They're drunk." Caesar appeared behind them, hair slightly ruffled, expression half frustrated, half resigned. "They found the local fruit wine," he said. "It's stronger than it looks." Pearl lifted a finger. "It was 2 glasses, Mum. Or 3. Or 4. The cup was tiny." "Tiny?" Mira echoed, spreading her arms wide. "Okay." Lynad held her daughter gently by the shoulders. "Pearl, sweetheart, you're walking like a malfunctioning robot." Pearl giggled. "Beep, beep." Caesar sighed. "Let's get them to bed." They worked together, guiding, lifting, coaxing the girls into the mattress. Pearl flopped face first into the pillows while Mira whispered dramatically, "The world is spinning, but I'm still cute." "Yes, darling, you're adorable," Lynad said, tugging off her shoes. "Now sleep." Caesar tucked the blanket around Mira with surprising tenderness. "Tomorrow you both will wash plates for Lila until your backs break." "Yes, Uncle," Mira mumbled, already drifting. When the room finally fell silent, Lynad and Caesar stepped back out to the living space. The moment the door clicked shut, the noise inside her head calmed. The tension of panic, of mother mode, began to ease, leaving behind something quiet and heavy. "Thank you," she said. "I would have cried if I had to drag Pearl here alone." "You're a strong woman," he replied. "You don't look like you cry over much. You'd be surprised." He leaned against the railing, studying her with an expression she hadn't seen before. Something open, something curious, something dangerous. "You look tired," he said softly. She laughed a little. "I've been tired since I was 19. "Why?" "No one ever taught me how to rest," she whispered. His eyes softened in a way that made her heart tremble. Without thinking, she blurted, "Do you want tea or wine? I can't sleep like this." He hesitated for only a moment. "Wine." "Rooftop?" He nodded. They climbed the narrow wooden stairs to the rooftop terrace. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, casting warm pools of gold across the wooden planks. The sea glistened below them, a dark shimmer broken only by moonlight. Lila had left a bottle of her favorite homemade citrus wine on the small table. They poured quietly, the clink of glass sounding louder than it should. They sat side by side, but not too close. Not yet. For a long moment, they simply listened, to the waves, to the faraway music, to the girls' deep sleep inside the lodge. "You know," Caesar said finally, "I spent 5 years thinking I would never sit like this with another woman." She swallowed hard. "Because of Rachel?" "Yes." He stared into the night. "She wasn't just my wife. She was peace, a home I didn't know I needed. Losing her felt like someone carved out half my ribs and expected me to keep walking." Lynad lowered her glass. "I'm sorry, Caesar, truly." He nodded, accepting her empathy like a fragile thing. "What about you?" he asked quietly. "Any great heartbreak?" She shrugged. "Not romantic heartbreak, more like life heartbreak." He waited. "I grew up with a mother who tried," she said, "but life beat her too early. I learned to hustle young, learned to disappear my own needs. Then I had Pearl with Daniel. We were kids pretending to be adults. He was good. I was scared. And scared women make terrible partners. You sound hard on yourself," he murmured. "It's easier to blame me than blame circumstances." He studied her for a long moment. "You deserve softness too, you know." Her breath caught. For a while they talked about everything and nothing, about Lagos chaos and Maldives quiet, about how Mira reminded him of Rachel, about how Pearl reminded Lynad of her younger self, too brave, too bright, hiding too much. Conversations shifted into laughter, warm, soft laughter that curled between them like smoke. The wine melted the edges of the moment. The lanterns painted halos on their skin. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was charged. He set his glass down. She felt her pulse stumble. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything." "Why do you feel easy to talk to?" His voice was soft, almost reluctant. "I didn't expect that." "Maybe," she whispered, "because you make it feel safe." His breath shook. Not visibly, but she heard it in the space between words. Then he lifted a hand, slow as if approaching something sacred, and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't flinch. He leaned in, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. And then his lips touched hers. The first kiss was tentative, soft, careful, searching. The second was nothing like that. He kissed her with a hunger that felt like years of loneliness, collapsing all at once. She responded with a desperation she didn't know she'd been carrying. Her fingers found his shirt. His hand slid to her waist. The rooftop spun, not from the wine, but from the intensity between them. He tasted like citrus in grief and longing. She tasted like hope and fear and rediscovery. They didn't make it back to the bedroom. They found each other in the soft lantern glow, bodies pressed, breaths tangled, whispers turning into gasps. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. It wasn't polite. It was real. It was raw. It was healing. For the first time in years, someone touched her like she mattered. For the first time in years, he let someone touch the parts of him still bruised from loss. Sometime in the early hours, they lay in a tangle of warmth, the ocean humming beneath them like a lullaby. Caesar slept with his arm draped around her waist. She lay awake a while, staring at the ceiling, feeling alive in a way she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Maybe something in her life was finally turning right. But morning came with a blow she never saw coming. When she rose to make tea, she left her phone on the bedside table. A new message popped up. Caesar glanced, probably reflexively, and froze. "Mrs. Sincere, I don't care how you get it. Make him sign. Play nice, play emotional, play weak. Just get the land." The cup slipped from his hand. His face closed like a slammed door. "Caesar, you used me." His voice was cold steel. No, I didn't. You used my grief, my home, my niece, my land. Please listen. I don't want to hear anything from you." His voice cracked, barely, but she heard it. "Pack your things, Miss Anderson, and leave, today." The words cut deeper than she expected. By noon, she and Pearl were gone, and Caesar stood under the orange trees, fists clenched, trying to forget the woman who made him feel something he had sworn he'd never feel again. Hope. The flight back to Lagos felt twice as long as the flight that took them to Maldives. Pearl slept with her head on Lynad's shoulder, but Lynad didn't close her eyes once. Her mind replayed everything, his touch, his smile, the warmth of the night, and then the look on his face when he read that message. Betrayal. Disappointment. Hurt so sharp it had carved itself into her chest. By the time the plane landed at Murtala Muhammad Airport, she felt hollow. "Are you okay?" Pearl asked, rubbing her eyes. "I'm fine," she lied. But the truth followed her home like a shadow. The moment they entered their small Aniru apartment, The silence was suffocating. Pearl dropped her bag and walked into her room, sensing her mother's mood, but not pushing. Teenagers understood sadness better than adults gave them credit for. Standing in the dim living room, Lynad felt her knees weaken. The memories of the orchard, its glow, its laughter, its serenity, felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Here, everything was sharp, cold, noisy. Her phone buzzed. Mrs. Sincere. Be in the office by 9 a.m. We need a debrief and results. Results, she laughed bitterly. Results? I lost the only thing that felt right. She dropped into the couch and covered her face. For the first time in years, she cried. Not quiet, polite tears, but the heavy sobs she never let herself feel. Why did love always find her too late? Why did good things slip through her hands like sand? Pearl peeked from the doorway. Mom? Come here, she whispered. Pearl sat beside her, leaning her head on her mother's shoulder. You liked him, Pearl said softly. Yeah, Lynad breathed. I really did. And he liked you? That hurt even more. I think he did, but he has every reason not to believe that now. Pearl reached for her mother's hand. Then fix it. The simplicity of it startled her. Baby, it's not that easy. Why not? If you love someone, you try. Pearl shrugged. If someone hurt me by mistake, I'd want them to explain. I'd want them to come back. Lynad blinked slowly. Come back. Explain. Rain. Fight. She hadn't fought for anything purely emotional in years. She always fought for stability, survival, the next paycheck. But love? Love she always treated like a bonus she didn't deserve. Not this time. Not with Caeser. When she finally fell asleep that night, she dreamed of the orchard's lanterns swaying gently, and Caeser standing beneath them, alone. Morning came sharply. She walked into the Logan office with a heart made of steel and bruises. Mrs. Sincere sat behind her desk, fingers tapping impatiently. You're late, she said. It's 9:05, Lynad replied. That's late. Her boss leaned forward. Did he sign? No. Mrs. Sincere scoffed. So you failed. I'm not a machine, Lynad replied quietly, and he's not a number. Save the sentiments. Mrs. Sincere waved a hand. This land will be ours one way or another. I already sent him a contract through corporate channels. He'll have no choice. Something in that sentence made Lynad freeze. A contract? He signed? He submitted a signed copy at 7 a.m., Mrs. Sincere said proudly. Finally came to his senses. Her heart stopped. He signed. He actually signed. Even after what happened, he signed. Why? She whispered. Because everyone has a price. Mrs. Sincere smirked. But Lynad knew that wasn't true. Caeser wasn't that man. He didn't sell memories. He didn't sell grief. He didn't sell love. He sold only when he felt betrayed. Her chest burned. And, Mrs. Sincere continued, pulling out a thick document, we begin demolition plans in 60 days. Lynad grabbed the paper sharply. Demolition? You said redevelopment. Redevelopment requires clearing land, her boss replied with a shrug. Don't act naive. Something inside Lynad snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, dangerously. She scanned through the contract pages, and then she saw it. Withdrawal clause. Seller may reverse agreement within 10 days of submission. Her breath hitched. 10 days. 10 days. She slammed the file shut. I need to go, she said suddenly. Mrs. Sincere frowned. Go where? Your shift isn't. I quit. The words came out clean, sharp, liberating. You what? Her boss screeched. I quit, Lynad repeated. I'm done helping you destroy people's lives. You walk out now, Miss Anderson, and you'll never... I don't want anything from you, she said. Not your title, not your office, not your crumbs disguised as opportunities. And for the first time in her life, Lynad Anderson walked out of a room without fear. At home, she paced the living room until Pearl appeared with a bowl of cereal. Mom, why are you walking like you're preparing for battle? Because I am, she said. Pack your bags. Pearl blinked. We're going back? We're going back. But what about money? I'll figure it out. Her daughter looked at her for a long moment, then smiled brighter than the Maldives sun. Okay, Pearl said. I trust you. Those words steadied her more than anything else. For the next 3 hours, she moved like a woman possessed. She listed her car online, sold her expensive handbags, called Daniel. He answered immediately. Hey, you okay? You sound... I'm going back for him, she said. Silence, then softly. Good. You deserve something real, Lynad. If you found it, chase it. Don't lose it the way we lost us. Her throat tightened. Thank you. I'll take Pearl when you need time, he said, but go get your happiness. By evening, she had gathered every naira she could. By dawn, she and Pearl were boarding a flight back to Maldives. When she arrived at the orchard, Caesar was near the entrance, instructing workers. He turned and froze. Shock, relief, anger, heartbreak. Every emotion flickered across his face. What are you doing here? He asked hoarsely. She stepped forward and placed a sealed envelope on the table beside him, filled with every kobo she owned. I sold everything I have, she said, so you can keep your orchard. His breath faltered. You don't have to sell, she whispered. Not for Logan, not for me, not for anyone. He stared at her as if she were the sunrise. You came back? I came back because I love you, she said, voice shaking, and because I want to build something with you, not destroy it. Caesar swallowed hard, eyes glistening. You didn't use me? He whispered. No, I loved you. Pearl and Mira stood at the lodge door, watching silently. Very slowly, Caesar stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. For a long time, they didn't speak. Then he whispered the words she prayed for. I withdraw the contract. The orchard smelled different after the decision. Sweeter, lighter, as if the trees themselves understood that Caesar had finally let go of the last thread in tying him to grief. Word spread among the workers by sunrise. The land would not be sold. No demolition, no displacement, no betrayal of Rachel's dream. Lynad stood beside him as the workers cheered, clapped, and hugged one another. Some cried openly, wiping their faces with the backs of their hands. Others whispered prayers of gratitude. Mira ran straight into Pearl's arms, lifting her off the ground in excitement. You did it, Pearl whispered into her mother's ear as they hugged. You saved this place. Lynad shook her head gently. No, baby, he saved it. I just helped him see that he didn't have to let go of something beautiful. But Caesar wasn't looking at the orchard. He was looking at her. Later that evening, when the sun dipped low and painted the sky with gold, he led her to the same mountaintop where he once showed her the orchard glowing beneath lanterns. But this time it wasn't grief that lingered behind his eyes. It was hope. I used to look at this cliff and feel alone, he said softly, taking her hand. Even when the view was beautiful, I felt like the world ended here. And now, she whispered, now it feels like the beginning. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I was angry. I was grieving. And when I thought you manipulated me, it broke me in ways I didn't expect. I know, she murmured, and I should have told you the full truth the moment I realized what I felt for you. He kissed her forehead gently. We're here now, and I'm not letting you go again. Below them, Pearl and Mira ran through the orchard, their laughter carried upward by the wind. Workers were stringing lights across the lodge verandas, preparing for the evening celebration. The whole orchard was alive. Lynad squeezed his hand. What happens now? He smiled, the kind she hadn't seen before, soft and completely unguarded. We build, together. I withdrew the contract. Logan can find another coastline to ruin. She fired me, Lynad added casually. I know, he said. Lila told me she screamed loud enough for neighbors in Lagos to hear. They both laughed. So, what will you do now? He asked gently. For once, she whispered, I want to choose a life that lets me breathe. Pearl loves it here. I could help manage the lodges, expand the orchard's tourism, build something real with you. His breath hitched. You'd stay? Truly? She nodded. I'm tired of leaving the things that matter. He pulled her into his arms again, kissing her with the quiet passion of a man who had finally found his way back to life. The wedding was small, intimate, and perfect. It took place under the orange trees, rows of lanterns glowing above, petals scattered across the soft earth, and the ocean breeze brushing against their skin. Pearl walked ahead of her mother, holding a bouquet of fresh blossoms. Mira stood proudly with Caesar, adjusting his collar every few minutes like a tiny wedding planner. Lila officiated, voice trembling from joy. Workers lined the path, some wiping tears discreetly, others holding hands over their hearts. When Caesar said his vows, his voice broke. I thought my love story ended years ago, he whispered. But you walked into my sorrow and didn't try to change it. You just held it gently until it healed. I didn't know love could happen twice in one lifetime. And when Lynad spoke hers, she cried openly, with no shame. I spent years thinking I had to earn love by being useful, by fixing things, by carrying everything alone. But you showed me love that doesn't demand, love that allows me to rest. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing her tears away. They kissed under a sky full of lanterns, and the orchard erupted in cheers. Much later that night, after the music softened and guests drifted home, Caesar and Lynad stood on their balcony overlooking the lagoon. Pearl slept curled up beside Mira in the next room, the two girls now bound by something deeper than friendship. The world felt still. Caesar, she whispered, leaning into him. I never believed in second chances. He kissed the top of her head. Good thing I did. Below them, the orchard glowed like a constellation on earth, the trees swaying softly, alive, preserved, protected. Together they watched the future bloom.